And if you could please click like on this video, and also click like on all the other videos. If you can go back and do me a favor, this way it will bring the video up and other people who need help with writing can learn from it. I'm not doing this for money. I'm just hoping that other people can be helped on their writing journey, so this way more people can see it. So wish you well and have a nice day. Hello, my name is Bambi Harris. I'm the author of over 30 novels. I'm here to bring you another writing tip. I'm hoping it will help you on your writing journey. Today we're going to talk about believability in fiction. So this might not necessarily help you with biographies or anything, although believability carries on into all genres. But it's important that I discuss it because me personally, a lot of my books are set in different time periods. This is not excluding the modern times, but I wanted to talk about when you're writing about, there's a twofold situation here. When you're writing about the past, firstly, even though it's a book in fiction, you want to be, if you're including true events that actually happened, like World War II, or if a famous person is there, like Marilyn Monroe or something like that, the last thing you want to do is make something up about them, because all of a sudden you're drawing people's attention away from your storyline, and they'll say, well, Marilyn Monroe never did that. This doesn't make it believable. This takes me out of finding it credible. And you're like, well, it's fiction, so it doesn't really matter. And in some ways you can do that. I mean, there's no rules against it. But when people are reading a fiction book with true facts in it, they like the true facts to be as they were, unmessed with, if that makes sense. So if you're going to include anything that actually happened, try to be factual in those elements. But if you want to weave your characters into the scenery, make them like in the background where they see Marilyn Monroe, then absolutely. But you don't necessarily want it, you know, to change the past. It does make the reader uncomfortable, unless you're doing a whole book about let's see, just embellishing it, just making it up, and just, you'll need to present it that way, like a fantasized version of what the truth used to be. You essentially then can do it any way you want, but I'm just giving an idea of how it is for a reader. And you'll find that in movies too. If you're talking about, if you introduce real life people, it's just easier and for the reader if you present it in a way that they would find it believable about them. Now, the other part of the past, so I want you to imagine setting a book in the 50s. Now, a lot of people would be inclined to put all the women in poodle skirts, and everything's a diner, and everyone's a jukebox and a 50s car, and they're drag racing and stuff like that, which is great, because in Greece that would be perfect, because it was set around a bunch of teenagers, though in my eyes none of them look like teenagers, but we won't go there. But the fact of the matter is, that's only that group of people. In the 50s, and if you say, like, look at Back to the Future, if you look in the background, apart from the young people involved, in the 50s, in the background, when he went to the past, the older people were wearing nice shirtwaist dresses, the men were in suits. You know, there were probably some still 40s cars there and things like that. Realistically, not everyone in the 50s wore poodle skirts and dragged race and greased their hair. And that has to be remembered, because if you compare it to now, you have every walk of life, every culture, every nationality, every accent, every preference for clothes. In the 50s, it was a little bit more rigid. You wouldn't have as much variance, but the younger people wore the poodle skirts, the older people didn't. So their hairstyles are different depending on their age, what they did, their mannerisms and things like that. Now, secondly, if you really want to make it realistic, you have to think about how people really were. So say if I had a character in the 50s and she was, say, 35, she's not necessarily listening to 50s music. Johnny Mathis is not on her record player. She's still listening to songs from her younger days, which might have been, say, the early 40s. So she might be listening to Bing Crosby. Was it Cosby or Crosby? Well, she might still be listening to Perry Como, say, or Bob, what's his name? Well, it doesn't matter. Well, she'd be listening to someone from the 40s. So because she's older, that would be her preference. It's just like you or I, depending on our age, we're not necessarily listening to the music now. We could be, but a lot of the time we're listening to music from 10, 20 years ago. So you have to keep that in mind. The hairstyles, the clothes, and everything like that, you don't want to pigeonhole it into a stereotype, and that's the biggest thing. Credibility and believability is not stereotypes. If you can stretch away from that and research the scene, watch movies, look at documentaries, look at what people are actually wearing, what their hair looked like, what they were driving, what kind of things they did, especially documentaries where they're talking to people, just include what is realistic. Because there are many different types of people. Just because they're in the past doesn't mean they're all rigidly the same, because that's not any different now. We're all different, and back then was the same. You're going to have different age groups listening to different music, wearing different dresses and things like that. So I'm hoping you can keep that in mind with the past. Just, you know, you're not necessarily going to set it in the past, but again, if you even want to write a book set now, keep in mind the differences of preferences of individual people, and that will make it more believable, because everyone has different tastes. Even if there's a group of people who have similar interests, they're going to come from different backgrounds, and that's what we discussed in the past, talking about the individual backgrounds of each character. It's more believable if you put 5 people in a room, and they might have different age ranges, and one might be an orphan, one might come from a really nice family. They might see, say, let's see something unbelievable. They might see an alien, and when it comes to believability, you're going to have each individual person react to that differently. Believably, unless these people were raised seeing aliens, none of them are going to properly react with just a nonchalant, oh well. All of them are going to react probably with different levels or different types of shock. So one from the posh family might say, oh, I can't believe it. So the orphan might say, oh, you know, I was so down, but now I feel like my destiny's here, or something like that. You're going to have different concepts of how they feel about something, and that's what believability is. It's not everyone being the same. It's not everyone reacting the same, acting the same, saying the same if they have different accents, if one has a lisp. All of these things meld into believability. So just to regress, or just to summarize, if you include history, it's probably better, but not necessarily a rule. I'm not saying it's a rule, but as a guideline, it's always good to make that a real person or a real event. Keep it real if you can, and then build your fiction around it, if that makes sense, if you want to intervene into that. And also, in different eras, people of different age groups have different preferences. And again, driving down the street in the 50s, you would see a lot of cars from the 30s and 50s, because a lot of people couldn't necessarily afford brand new cars, so they would still be driving ones from 10 or so years ago. All of these things are important to keep in mind. So these are just little background tips. Again, no rules. There's no rules. But this will just help. These are just ideas, so hopefully it helps you. I will be continuing on with these writing tips every Saturday. Please subscribe to my channel. Click on the little red subscribe button, and the bell next to it will give you notifications. So if you could please click like on this video, and also click like on all the other videos. If you can go back and do me a favor, this way it will bring the video up, and other people who need help with writing can learn from it. I'm not doing this for money. I'm just hoping that other people can be helped on their writing journey, so this way more people can see it. So wish you well, and have a nice day.